Hello, I'm Dr. David Clarke from Sheffield Hallam University. I am the author of the UFO Files and consultant to the National Archives UFO project. In this presentation, I will guide you through the highlights of this, the 5th collection of Ministry of Defence UFO Files. There are 24 files in this collection. 15 of the files contain correspondence, there are 8 UFO sighting report files, and 1 file covering parliamentary questions. The correspondence files cover the period 1994 through to 1999, and the UFO report files begin in August 1994 and end in September 2000. In all, there are more than 6,000 pages of material in this release, covering over 1,000 separate UFO reports made to the Ministry of Defence. It's important to point out that many of these reports are not strictly unidentified flying objects. The vast majority are likely to be IFOs, that is, identified flying objects. One example from these files is a drawing that shows a flying object seen by a woman in Highbury, London, in January 1994. She watched it for some time and produced a sketch that shows a spinning Saturn-shaped UFO with white and red lights. But when she pointed this out to passers-by, they said it was a balloon or airship, not a flying saucer. In fact, this UFO was the Virgin Lightship airship that was operating over London at the time. A flyer for the company said the most striking feature of the airship is that the entire hull can be internally illuminated, providing a most dramatic advertising platform for nighttime use. An Air Ministry study during the 1950s found that 90% of sightings reported to them could be easily explained if inquiries were carried out quickly enough before the scent went cold. Many turned out on investigation to be ordinary things such as balloons, aircraft, fireballs and bright stars and planets. However, by the late 1990s, few of the incidents reported to the Ministry of Defence were investigated to this depth. As these files show, most were simply received and filed away without further investigation. Nevertheless, 1996 was one of the busiest years for UFOs, with 609 reports received by the Ministry of Defence. The popularity of UFOs continued into 1997, when 425 reports were logged. But from that point, the files show a decline in the numbers of sightings reported. There were just 193 in 1998, 228 in 1999, and 210 in the year 2000. Most of the UFO reports in these files describe lights and objects in the sky that left behind no tangible traces. But just occasionally, the files contain that rare nugget, a case of physical evidence. One example is the startling account of a man who developed an unexplained illness after he was hit by a beam of light from a UFO. He was driving in South Wales one night in January 1997 when he saw a massive star approaching his car from the east. Then a tube of light came down from the sky at a 45-degree angle that surrounded him. He stopped and switched his headlights off as the light encircled the car, remaining for perhaps 5 minutes. He noticed there was no sound, as would have been expected if the light was a searchlight from a helicopter or other aircraft. Frightened, he began to feel ill and was sick later that night. As he returned to the car, he noticed it was covered in dirt or dust, and he found that his radio and mobile phone would not work. When he called the Royal Air Force Base to report his experience the following morning, he was still feeling unwell, and he had developed a skin condition that needed medical treatment. But that is all the brief report in these files tells us. Curiously, a fictional story about a man, played by the actor John Travolta, who is struck by a bright light from the sky, was the key plot device in the film Phenomenon, which was released in the UK during August 1996, just 5 months before this Welsh UFO report. Was this an example of life imitating art, or is there another explanation? Shortly after the Welsh incident, in March 1997, there was a report of a UFO dropping a mysterious white substance on a suburban garden in Birmingham. A man was alerted by barking dogs to the presence of a large blue triangular-shaped object that hovered silently over his garden at 4 a.m. one morning. As he went outside, the UFO suddenly shot off into the sky and disappeared, leaving behind a silky white substance on the treetops. The witness collected some of this substance in a jam jar, but there is nothing in the files to suggest there was any further investigation of this incident by the Ministry of Defence. It is often claimed that UFOs tracked by radar provide hard evidence that some are structured craft visiting Earth from other worlds. But there are many types of natural phenomena that can cause unusual responses on radar screens. The key case in these files is a complex incident that occurred during a flurry of UFO sightings over the coast of East Anglia on the night of the 5th of October 1996. That evening, police in Boston and Skegness on the Lincolnshire coast reported seeing flashing coloured lights over the Wash. They alerted the Coast Guard, who contacted the Royal Air Force. This call led radar operators at RAF Neatishead in Norfolk to link the UFO reports with an unidentified blip they could see above Boston in Lincolnshire. But as this UFO on radar remained motionless for almost 9 hours, that is, until the time that dawn broke, cool observation confirmed it was actually a permanent echo, something that had been seen before. It was in all likelihood caused by the tall spire of St Botolph's Church in Boston, known locally as Boston Stump. A Royal Air Force investigation later found the lights that had been seen and captured on video by the Lincolnshire police could be easily explained as bright stars which had faded in the dawn sky. This example illustrates how easy it is, even for experienced operators, to misinterpret natural phenomena seen on radar as something extraordinary, particularly when there is a UFO scare underway at the time. The files contain one intriguing UFO incident that was reported to West Lothian police by a cable layer working for a Scottish electricity company. Late on the night of the 30th of July 1994, he was sitting in his car watching an electrical storm from playing fields at Annandale near Edinburgh when he saw a flying object that appeared to be descending behind trees to the southwest. He followed the object, driving onto a narrow road to obtain a better view. Suddenly it reappeared, swooping low over the bonnet of his car and hovered just 10 to 15 feet from the ground. He feared it was about to crash into the fields, but it suddenly reversed its direction and sped off in a northerly direction. A sketch of this UFO, sent to the MOD, shows a large object shaped like a Toblerone chocolate bar with rounded corners. It was unlighted and made no sound. During the incident, the observer claimed his car ignition and a handheld torch failed to work. He eventually called the police on his mobile phone and they arrived at the scene shortly afterwards. Their report said, "Not drunk," and appears genuine. All 24 of these files can be downloaded from the National Archives UFO website at nationalarchives.gov.uk/UFOs.